Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Improving Talks. I'm really excited today to have Mark Runyon with us. He's a vice president with Improving, an extensive background in software development and leading development teams. And in the past year, he's added employee growth lead to his title, which takes us to our topic for today's talk. So I'll turn it over to Mark as he guides us on the importance of a growth mindset in the technical field. And Mark, it's all yours.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate the introduction. And yes, thank you all for joining for developing a growth mindset in a technical field. This is, as Lynn mentioned, via my role with our office of CCO, a topic kind of near and dear to my heart, and happy to be able to share this with you today. As Lynn mentioned, I am a vice president of consulting out of our Atlanta office. My focus really is on helping our people grow and also helping polish and perfect our delivery efforts within our client engagements. Through the office of the CCO and my role as employee growth lead, really focused on our career coaching program, our path, and helping to strategize, with the execution of that program, as well as assisting with our leadership development programs, helping integrate these key initiatives with the new enterprises that are acquired and come into the Improving family. And really cool to get to work with some very, very bright and very innovative groups as they kind of come into the fold and kind of help them see the world the way that we do. And I'm fortunate to be able to play that role. So let's get into the topic of for today, of the idea of growth mindset. So we're starting off with this quote from Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. Longevity in business is about being able to reinvent yourself. Now, I'm not sure if this quote has to do with himself or has to do with Microsoft. I think they both apply pretty equally. If we look at Microsoft from their inception, they have continually reinvented themselves, whether it be in the software business, the cloud, recently with ChatGPT and the OpenAI partnership, they have proven over time to stay relevant and be able to shift. But we need to take that idea of a technology business needing to change and point it back on ourselves as technologists, that we constantly need to be reinventing ourselves to stay relevant and bring value to our work. The reality is every single one of us that's in IT voluntarily chose to get on that hamster wheel that is technology. And we continually have to be growing. We continually have to be kind of pushing the envelope about what's possible, making sure that we are elevating, we are adding value whenever we can. And especially those of us who are more senior in our career, if we look and see the progress we've made, sometimes we don't push ourselves as hard. That excitement may have fallen off. Maybe we get really comfortable. Maybe we've done so many reps that this just becomes commonplace, and we don't think about the growth side of our technology as much. And that's a tough place to be in when technology is moving as fast as it is today, and hoping, I still have 10 years or 20 years left in this industry. Well, what does that look like if I don't continue to improve and I don't continue to push myself? Because the pace of change is very furious at the moment. I don't think too many people would debate me on that topic. The reality is, if we do nothing, if we stay still, our skills are continuing to atrophy. We have to be challenging ourselves. Unless you're a COBOL programmer, which there is value in, the rest of us have to stay on top of our game. Because if we look at the cloud, we look at automation, we look at AI, it's amazing what's happening in the space right now. I mean, it feels like there's a new cloud service introduced every day. The automation side of things, I've worked with a client that did some fantastically cool stuff with Automation Anywhere and automating like their entire accounting process and allowing all this manual tasks that were being done by this team to elevate that team so they could work on more strategic, more valuable tasks within the business. It just transformed their entire team. I mean, it's amazing what automation can do. We'll dig into AI in the next slide, but it feels like we are in this paradigm shift where things are changing very rapidly. And if we don't change with them, we risk being left behind. We risk that story being written without us, with that new reality getting pushed upon us instead of being proactive and wanting to grow into it and to solidify our value, whatever this looks like. Which brings us to the fun topic of AI and the impact of artificial intelligence. So my goal here today is not to be a fearmonger. So let's just set intent there real quick. It really is just to highlight the realities that exist within the world that we inhabit. I was at the MS Build conference back in May, and it was shocking how almost every single session had something to do with AI. It is quickly getting infused into everything that we do in the technology space. And we can't ignore it. I mean, that is where all the money is going. That's where all the focus is going from all the tech titans. And we really need to recognize that if our industry is moving in a certain direction, we need to be prepared to move with it. So some interesting quotes here or findings. GitHub Copilot was shown to increase productivity by 55% in Microsoft's internal tests. That is a overwhelmingly positive thing. You know, what does that mean? I have time to learn new coding skills. I can be more productive in my day-to-day work. I can automate repetitive tasks. It helps me prevent burnout. None of us would argue that any of that is not a non-positive thing. But you do realize there's a bean counter in the organization saying, hey, I can get by with half as many developers. That's not true. You and I both know this as technologists, but the reality is the business sees it in a different way. While they don't have to get by with half as many developers, what the ask is going to be inevitably is we are all going to have to do more with less. This next fun quote, AI will replace software developers as early as 2040. Personally, I'm calling BS on this quote. I have been with many clients over my career, and one of the more recent ones that I was with for 6 years, they had been trying to rewrite one of their key systems for that entire 6-year period, and they had made zero progress. So the pace of business conflicts with the pace of AI and some of these lofty predictions. So I can pretty solidly say that this is not true, but there's a very interesting side note from this, was 30% of software developers who were asked this question thought it to be true. So there's some interesting food for thought for you. I think the only for sure takeaway is that none of us know what this technology space looks like a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But the thing I can guarantee is we are going to see disruption. The future can either get thrust upon us or we can prepare for it and take those steps to be ready for it. When I started my career during the dot-com bust, my first job out of grad school was as a web developer. That job did not exist 5 years prior. There's going to be opportunities created by this shift, but are you prepared to take advantage of those opportunities, or are you going to get left behind in something that may not be relevant anymore? So that brings us to our topic of the day, the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. So to start off with, we need to kind of define what each one of these things are, so we can understand what we're talking about, and we can understand kind of the merits and how that fixed mindset may be working against us. So the fixed mindset, it's this belief that success is innate. It is within us. I either have it or I don't. When I receive feedback within the fixed mindset, it is a roller coaster. that positive feedback reinforces those views I have about my talents. Negative feedbacks really cuts into my very being. It's really hard to hear. These are hard to accept about myself, because it's how I see myself, how I feel about myself. You dread failure. If talent truly is innate, that when I fail, I am not good enough. There is no getting better. I have to live with that inadequacy, and that is a tough thing to carry around in our day-to-day lives. Lastly, there's lots of focus on proving. I keep having to show off my talent. I have to continually show that I'm good enough. This sounds exhausting. It really does. Just like our picture here. I mean, essentially within the fixed mindset, we are putting bars on our potential. We're putting bars on what we can attain, what we can strive for in our lives. And the results of the fixed mindset are this feeling stuck, being demotivated, blaming others for your situation, and ultimately holding back your career and holding back your life. So my first example of the fixed mindset is a man a lot of people know, at least who follow tennis, John McEnroe. When I say like words that come to mind, you're probably thinking to yourself, a fierce competitor, somebody who's fiery, somebody who's kind of controversial, somebody who's not a fun guy to be around. But one that you're probably not coming to mind is fixed mindset. Now, that may seem strange to you, because this is the person who was a man who was number one at his game in the world for several years. And we're not saying that having a fixed mindset can't get you to the top upper echelons of your chosen profession. But are you going to stay there? Are you going to progress? Are you going to live into the person that you potentially could become? McEnroe admits that he very much operated from that fixed mindset. There's a story of him losing a doubles match and then not playing doubles again for 20 years, which seems crazy to most of us. But if you believe innate talent, then if I lose a match, then I'm just not good at that. So I'm just not going to do that anymore. So we need to kind of see it as just a way to learn. That failure is something that can help build us up, help us grow. And McEnroe's thought is, when I lose a match, it's ultimately not my fault. I'm going to blame the ball boy. I'm going to blame the umpire, anyone else except me having to take ownership myself. And that ultimately limited his potential. So if we look into the growth mindset, conversely, this idea that with effort, you can improve. Feedback is essential. It provides you a chance to grow. Failure is a means to learn, and you are operating from an internal locus of control. So essentially, I have control over my own behavior. I'm not letting someone else dictate or influence how I feel about myself. Now, this growth mindset, it opens up a vastly larger set of options. We are operating from a place that we can change our trajectory. We can control our own destiny. And we're not just talking about your career here. We're talking about your personal life. We're talking about the relationships that you have, your ability to live into a fulfilling life. It goes beyond just the professional. And then the results of a growth mindset, we're living with more confidence. We're making more impact with the things that we do. We take risks. We are open to feedback. Possibilities open themselves up, and there's a lot more chance to excel, and ultimately allows us to realize our career growth. You're in the driver's seat. You control the outcome. On the other kind of side of the spectrum, on the athletic side, we have Michael Jordan, who I think most I will consider the greatest of all time. But some may disagree with me. Happy to have a discussion with you after the fact, if you want. But somebody who just kind of personified effortlessness and grace within his playing. And he will tell you himself that there was no innate talent. This was hours and hours and hours of fighting to be better, constantly going up against adversity, ultimately holding himself up to the standard where there was always, something left in the tank. There was a gear that he hadn't quite reached that made him the greatest of all time. And again, living into that growth mindset. So when we look at it, does beg to the question does beg to be answered. Where does this mindset originate? Where does it come from? A lot of times it's feedback. We can kind of look at that feedback that we've been given over the years, whether it be through parents, from teachers, even our modern lives, our boss, our coworkers. It reinforces that mindset that we currently have. These two statements: good job, you're smart. We are really pegging into your innate ability right there and talking in a very fixed mindset type way with that feedback, versus you worked really hard, nice job. That, conversely, is, effort is really putting into making that success. And that is very much a growth mindset type phrase. Now, the inner psychologist in me needs to say that I'm not blaming your parents, I'm not blaming your teacher or even your boss, because the reality is every single one of us walks through life with our own mental models that we have developed over time, of their parents telling them that, or their boss giving them that feedback. And that's fine. We just need to accept where people are. We're not going to be able to change people, but we can definitely change ourselves. We can change how we receive that feedback and how we see the world. So again, no blame. That's not helpful, but it is helpful to understand where this feedback is coming from, and ultimately, how do we digest it? How do we see it in the right context so that we can move forward in the right direction and shift some of those phrases to the growth mindset that we ultimately want to accomplish. Also, these bleed into this idea of self-limiting beliefs. These statements here: I'm not a good presenter. I don't believe I can. I'm not as good as Frank. One thing all these have in common: they are just oozing with negativity. I mean, it's just hard to hear them for myself, because I want to fight back whenever I hear any of those words. We really need to ask ourselves, when we say these things to ourselves, how are these self-limiting beliefs, how are they serving us? I'm fairly certain they're not. So ultimately, what they're doing is they're limiting your confidence. They're holding you back from trying new things. So let's change up the conversation. Like my favorite mythical admin here, Don Draper, once said, if you don't like what they're saying about you, change the conversation. We don't have to be a slave to those internal voices on our head. We can flip that script and see them in a positive light that they really should be seen in. So let's take the inverse of these phrases. I'm not a good presenter yet. So that's saying I'm a work in progress. I will get there, but I recognize I still have work to do. Rome was not built in a day, and neither am I when it comes to some of these critical skills that I want to develop and I want to be better at. This idea that you're not good enough in some way. You're not equipped to have a seat at the table. We need to say to ourselves, I have wisdom. I have a unique perspective that I bring that no one else at that table has. Don't ever feel like you need to silence your voice and that it doesn't have value because of your perceived inadequacies. It's not true. You have something to say, and make sure that you allow yourself to say it. Lastly, this idea of, Frank is better than me at that, so Frank should go do that job, or why are you bringing that to me? Recognize it's okay for Frank to be better at that thing, but what can we learn from Frank? Can Frank serve as our mentor? Can he help us develop this skill that we really want to see in ourselves? Try to leverage the people around us that can help grow us and help take us to the things that lean into those things that we really want to do. And also, don't miss the other side of that equation of how can we help the next the next person that wants to be good at the thing that I'm good at, that wants to excel, and who I might lend a helping hand to and help further themselves and their career, their personal pursuits, or whatever that is for them. Let's touch on a few misconceptions around growth mindset before we get too much further. So I'm absolutely certain there's at least one person out there in Zoom land who's thinking to themselves, I already have a growth mindset. I always have. So why are you bugging me about this? Well, I will say that not everyone operates from a growth mindset all the time. And I would even argue that most of us through our day-to-day likely operate from a fixed mindset. Walk through this here with me. You're driving to work this morning, last week, whenever. I guarantee you're not thinking to yourself actively, how can I become a better driver while you're making that journey into work? Now in Atlanta, I really wish some people would have that thought, but it's not going to happen. So I'm going to leave that one alone. The reality is you're focused on getting from point A to point B. That is your concern. How do I get there in the smallest amount of time? And how do I not get in a wreck while that's happening? I'm not really thinking about how do I grow myself as a better driver. And that's fair. I need to zone out in that time. I need to have some time just for myself. So I can get to things that really matter in my day. Email, same thing. You open your email box in the morning. You're not thinking to yourself, man, how much more effective would I be if I could categorize all these messages and automatically throw them into folders based on how important they are? When do I need to check them in my day? I mean, hopefully at some point in time in life, you're having that conversation with yourself. But if you're like me, you're probably having it when you get super frustrated with your email box. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can't get anything done because there's all this crap stuff in my email box that I don't care about. Truthfully, we need to get on with our day. This is just a thing that needs to be done so that I can move on to the things that matter. So again, reinforcing this idea that our default state really is that fixed mindset, and we really have to shift gears to go into growth mode. Our second misconception that we have here, that this whole growth mindset thing, it's really just about praising and rewarding effort. Outcomes ultimately don't matter. And I can say nothing could be further from the truth. If you are not making progress, then it shows that there's something a little bit off with how you're approaching growth mindset. It's not quite working for you. And what my call out would be, it's time to do a little bit of self-reflection to understand, how am I putting growth mindset into practice? Are there limitations? Are there those roadblocks that are creeping in that are secretly standing in my way from actually practicing a growth mindset because I'm not seeing the results on the other side? I'm not seeing that follow through, this effort that I'm putting into it. And don't feel like that you're on this path and that it's set in stone, that you can make changes, you can pivot and change strategies along the way when it becomes present that this current course isn't working for me and something needs to change. So allow yourself, give yourself permission to make those changes when it becomes clear that that's needed. Next, if I have a growth mindset, good things will always happen. I'm going to inhabit this world filled with rainbows, puppies, and sunshine. Sometimes that is the case, but the reality is when you're operating within a growth mindset, that you're operating outside your comfort zone. You are learning new things, acquiring new skills, really upping your game and what's possible. And with that, failure is inevitable. It's important. That is the thing that helps you learn. That's the thing that helps you grow. Those are the moments that you have to be comfortable facing. Ultimately, it better aligns you for opportunity and success. So it's not about, I'm not really focused on the failures of today, but I'm reflecting on the doors that I'm opening for myself tomorrow that otherwise wouldn't have been there if I hadn't taken those risks, if I hadn't taken those challenges, if I hadn't had that learning experience to grow myself. Our last misconception is kind of the bookend to the first one. I must always have a growth mindset. And I will say, please don't. You need to relax. You need to enjoy your life. Give yourself permission to sometimes just enjoy yourself. Learning is a fantastic goal, but sometimes it just makes more sense to let's enjoy this space right here. The example for me was it's probably about a year and a half ago. I was doing Duolingo every day, and I had this like a 200-day streak going on. And at some point, I just kind of thought to myself, this goal isn't speaking to me anymore. I kind of forgot why I started to begin with, and my daughter was aghast that I killed a 200-day streak. But it's like this 3 to 5 minutes every day of mine can probably be better used doing something else. So I was okay killing that. So with misconceptions out of the way, let's dive into probably the kind of the more meat of the conversation of essentially you're your own worst enemy. There are roadblocks at every turn keeping you from developing and practicing a growth mindset. So the question is which one of these is you? Which one is the demon that you're battling with that you have to overcome? And for most of it, it's not just one. It's probably 2 or 3 of these things that really stand in our way and keep us from practicing that growth mindset and following through on a daily basis. So the first one, a lack of confidence. All these fun phrases. I'm not good enough. I don't have experience. I'm not gonna apply to that job because I don't meet 100% of the requirements. Somebody else is better suited for that. I'm gonna turn down that job that's being offered to me, or that project that I'm being asked to lead because I haven't done it before. I'm uncertain. Somebody else is much more skilled in that area. I'm certain than I am. Somebody else should do it. I'm not confident. Lastly, this idea of imposter syndrome. It's super fun. I have a friend that's battling with this right now, that you're already in the job, but every single day you're waiting for that other shoe to fall. You're thinking they put the wrong person in this job, and someday somebody's going to wake up and figure it out, and I'm going to be found out, and they're going to fire me or demote me or something. This idea of imposter syndrome that plagues a lot of us. So what is the solution to dealing with this lack of confidence? First, and this is going to be a very common thread that kind of runs through everything that we have here when it comes to roadblocks and our solutionings, is we need to start journaling. We need to start capturing those self-limiting beliefs. This idea of you're not good enough. Let's turn that am I into I am. I am good enough. I am capable of doing this. Sometimes this becomes a fake it until you make it type situation. But we also need to kind of dig a little bit deeper in it and really find out, where's this coming from? Where's this originating from? Am I relying too much on what other people think? And if I am, I need to ask myself, does their opinion really matter at the end of the day? It's this idea of the external locus of control. I am allowing somebody else to dictate my self-worth. Why would I do that? Again, how is that serving me? We need to focus on the impact. What is this impact that we want to make with this thing that we want to lean into? Why is it important to us? Keeping a list of the things that you do well, putting Post-it notes on your bathroom mirror, on your monitor, those things that help reinforce the positive things, give us that source of inspiration, fuel our positive mindset that we can reflect back on very often and keep telling ourselves we are good enough, that we are capable. Look at all these great things that I have done and continue to do, and I keep adding to this list. Lastly, surround yourself with that support circle that nurtures you, that grows you. These are your family, your friends that really build you up. They amplify your strengths. They can really help bring out the best of you. And also, we need to limit the exposure of those toxic individuals really try to bring you down, that really puts you in a bad place. There's nothing positive coming from those individuals. So why are we giving them any more control over you than what we should? Our next roadblock is a fear of failure. So when you take risks, you sometimes fail. And that, and for some of us, that can be one of the biggest things we deal with. You don't step up to responsibilities because you have a fear of disappointing someone. We're reluctant to share ideas, not knowing how they'll be received. Maybe we're in that meeting with our boss or our boss's boss, and we just don't we don't know how this thought is going to be received, so we keep it to ourselves. We silence ourselves and don't put a really good idea on the table because of that. And that fear of failure can be crippling. It can really, again, not serve us in our effort to grow. Looking at that, we have so to counteract that, the solution is, well, to start with, I have this quote by Thomas Edison of, "I have not failed 10,000 times, but I have succeeded in proving that those 10,000 ways will not work." Reframing that failure to actually show it as success. Here's what I have accomplished. Here's how I have kind of moved the ball forward. And this Thomas Edison, I'm not sure if you're aware, but his story is fairly interesting. You know, before I kind of dug into, you know, what's happening behind this quote, I always kind of viewed Thomas Edison as this, you know, eccentric mad scientist type, kind of tinkering away in his lab, failing him 10,000 times creating the light bulb. But the reality is that it wasn't just Thomas Edison. He had an entire team around him of experts in their specific area that it would take to create the light bulb. He was well funded. You know, he had financial backers behind him. He had this team of experts working on the light bulb. He was the visionary. He was the PR man. He was the one who wouldn't accept failure. And I think there's something important kind of in that little sub story here of understanding that our success, our growth isn't just about us, that throughout the successes we've had in our lives, somebody else was probably helping us, pulling us up, lending us their expertise to help elevate us and get us to that better place. So when we think about our growth, think about who are those people that can help us, who's that mentor, that coach that potentially could lean in and help us get to that next place. And again, subsequently, how can we give back to others as well? So back to our topic at hand here. So we have to commit to our own personal growth. Just like we saw with Thomas Edison's quote, we need to reframe and celebrate that failure and see the value that it brought to us. Again, I've discovered 10,000 ways that will not work, and therefore I've crossed a lot of things off my list. Now I can go try some other things that potentially will succeed. We need to welcome and solicit feedback. And one of the key parts of this here is, well, there's actually two pieces of that. One, we want to accept that constructive criticism from those we respect. All sorts of people are going to offer you feedback, but reality is there's probably a thin slice that we really care about, that is actionable, that is somebody that's kind of looking out for our own best interest. So we do need to be a little discerning about who we accept that feedback from. And feedback is not always going to just present itself. Sometimes we actually have to go out and ask other people, again, those people that we trust, that are going to give us that honest feedback that's really helpful. Ask them, you know, how was my talk? You know, how was that thing I brought up in the question I brought up in the presentation the other day? Help trigger that feedback that might not be there otherwise. Lastly, we need to reflect on what we learned. You know, when we fail, we need to actually take some time and understand How is this going to help me grow? What's my takeaway from this? How would I have done things differently? And for this topic and this failure topic, how is the reality different from the story I told myself coming into this situation? Sometimes the stories that we tell ourselves are the biggest hurdle that stands in our way. Reality is usually much different. It's much kinder to ourselves. All right, so our next roadblock is a fear of success. Kind of like our strangely fogged out road here. What lies at the other side of this? Does the road curve? Does the earth just stop when we fall off into the abyss? Sometimes that facing the unknown can be a really scary thing. Not understanding what the success brings. Again, we tell ourselves a lot of stories that ultimately sabotage our success. A lot of times they rotate around this topic of what's going to be different if I succeed. I secure that new client. Can I deliver for them? Am I capable? So take like, hey, accepting that new job. It's probably going to bring some more pressure. I'm going to have people answering to me, depending on me. Might have less free time. Again, what's the story versus the reality? The reality is you can't see the other side until you are in the middle of it. And it takes us to this place of this uncharted territory that if I try something and I fail, then I can go back to what I knew. I can go back to my comfort zone. But if I succeed, then I'm truly in this uncharted territory. All those things that I was good at are now in the rear view. But that's likely not the case. Usually these opportunities that come to you kind of build on the things that you were already good at, and kind of springboard you to that next thing, that next opportunity. So again, it's all reflected in how we see it. How do we view this reality? And the one very large takeaway that we need to have around these roadblocks, fear of success, is we will never outperform our own self-image of ourselves. We unconsciously stick a ceiling on our potential, and we are not going to break through that ceiling unless we can destroy that narrative that is telling us that we can't do it, that we cannot perform, that's above our means. On our solutions front for this one, focusing on hope over fear. Again, let's start by journaling. Let's be very honest about ourselves with what are those fears. Acknowledge what within us is sabotaging ourselves. If we can figure that out, then that's kind of half our battle right there, of just acknowledging and stepping up to that conversation. Next, we need to redefine success. What is it exactly that is making you uncomfortable about success? What's keeping you from pursuing that success? A really handy, super helpful device is asking the 5 whys. I imagine every single person here knows what I am talking about, because if you have been around a 3-year-old, they use this to an annoying degree of, why is the sky blue? You answer and they say, why? And then you try to recraft and reshape that answer and they say, why? And why? Until you're about to drive your head through a wall. It's super frustrating, but it is super helpful when it comes time to understand the root cause of why you have this fear of success. It allows you to iterate through and to dig deeper about what exactly do you fear? Why do you fear it? What is underlying this thing? And we ultimately have to take stock in our past successes too. Don't be writing off your successes as luck. Don't be afraid that I won't be able to replicate that. I have that feeling of, oh my gosh, I have to capture lightning in a bottle twice. That's not the case. Capturing those highlights can be from that performance, from that success, can really help you pave the way for whatever that next success is. This last one, crafting mental imagery around successes. See yourself in that role, feel the experience. What does that look like? This tool is very frequently used by athletes. The 2014 Sochi Olympics, the Canadian team brought 8 sports psychologists. to help their athletes think through every minute detail of their performance. What's each turn going to look like? Where's my body going to be? How do I feel at the end of it? I mean, they walked through their successes so many times that by the time they were in the event, it was kind of like, what's my other option? I've only seen success, and therefore I just now have to live it. I have to put it into action. For some people, this idea of perfectionism is their biggest roadblock. It takes you twice as long to produce the report as your coworker. You frequently enter this state of analysis paralysis. You don't suggest that idea until it's flawless. Ultimately, you become your own worst enemy. You're never going to reach that bar that you set for yourself because it's unattainable. You're never going to be good enough. That's a frustrating thing to think about. It's a frustrating place to be. So for this one, we need to try to do something at less than 100%. Again, let's do some journaling. Let's first identify myself as a perfectionist. What is driving that behavior? What is fueling these very unrealistic expectations I have for myself? Is it me holding myself to the standard? Is it somebody else holding me to that standard? What is the source of this problem? Next, we need to free up some time to do something more important. We need to by leaning into that, we can see what did I get done by not putting that extra hour into that email to make sure it was just perfect before it went out to the team. I probably got a lot more done that was important to me by sacrificing that last hour and allocating it to something else. And then lastly, we need to understand, we keep talking about this idea of risk and failure, but we need to understand that growth mindset requires failure. It's essential to learn, it's essential to grow, and to make those mistakes and learn from them. And we're never going to be able to truly innovate unless we take those risks and we push ourselves and we want to be better. Our next roadblock, feeling stuck. You don't know what direction your life should take. You have no idea what path to pursue. You're not sure your core values, your needs or values, and you don't know what brings you joy and fulfillment. This is a big ball of yuck right here. This is a place that no one wants to get themselves into or to operate from. I've worked with some people through our path coaching program that kind of found themselves in this place, and it's tough. There's no sugarcoating that. But this is not a place you have to stay. This is actually a place that is not difficult to get yourself unstuck from. Our fun quote here from Yogi Berra: "If you don't know where you're going, you'll ultimately end up somewhere else." Again, time for some self-reflection. When we get stuck, do we know what we want? We need to really kind of key into what are our talents and goals? What are the things that give us passion? What are the things that drain us or we'd rather not be doing? What does a personal vision statement look like for ourselves? Sometimes just sitting down and kind of designing out a life book of, what is, for this one area of my life, where do I want to be a year from now, or 5 years from now, or 10 years from now? And I find it helpful to kind of take it in kind of two different variations of let's take the safe route of, assuming that lots of limitations are upon me and everything else, what does that vision look like? And then let's take the blue sky approach of, if money, time, effort were not impediments, what would that view look like? What could I potentially accomplish? And what do I want to see for myself? Those are some interesting exercises to go through and do that self-exploration and find out more about yourself and really kind of dig deeper and understand what you care about. Where do you find value? One of the most important things for this is to find that accountability partner. What we found through our path coaching program is the ideas are within you. It's just a matter of pulling them out, asking the right questions, really going deeper and identifying those possibilities that you're probably not seeing yourself. It's hard for you to to put your finger on. Having that other person helps create that conversation, helps you find those things that are within you. Lastly, don't be afraid to change course. If the plan isn't working, accept that. Again, it's like our Thomas Edison quote, it's not a failure, but we actually accomplished something. We took an effort. We found out something about ourselves. It wasn't the right thing, but we discovered something about ourselves. And now we know we're going to take a different direction based off of these new findings. That was time well spent. There's value in that exercise. So don't be afraid when you have to course correct. That's not a bad thing. Again, we learned something really valuable about ourselves. The next one is inertia. This roadblock is, you know what needs to be done, but you can't figure out how to attack it. You have that laundry list of projects that never gets started, or if you're like most programmers I know, never gets finished. You want to master a new skill, but you never sign up for the class. You never get started. So for this one, it can be really helpful to break your tasks up. Again, start by journaling. Is there emotional barriers standing in your way of getting started, of getting finished? Maybe your goals are too grand. Let's right size those goals. Let's slice them up into SMART goals to help make them achievable, make them something that we can actually accomplish, that we can see success through. For those who haven't encountered SMART goals before, they stand for specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-bound. So say you were trying to become a better public speaker, and you might have a SMART goal of a 90-day goal set for yourself to speak at an upcoming user group. A fantastic goal for a longer term, say year-long goal of becoming a better public speaker. So during that 90 days, you put together your talk, you assemble your deck, you do all your research and everything, and you get ready. You dry run your talk, you might give it to a friend for feedback, and then you're ready to give it on the day of. Again, that it's it's very relevant to your long-term goal. It's in a very time-bound space, and it's something that we can build off of. Once we find that success at giving that talk, we've started laying the foundation of this greater goal that we're trying to get of becoming an accomplished public speaker. So SMART goals can really help get you going, get you moving, get you past that inertia. Creating that disciplined time to work. All of us have certain times of the day that we are the most effective. For some people, it's the morning time, some people it's the afternoon. Tailoring your work, your really productive work for that time can make all the difference in the world. Daniel Pink wrote a book called When that really kind of outlines and digs into this idea of our circadian rhythms and working with our body and not working against it. So great read if you want to dig into that topic some more. Next, setting your sights on the purpose behind it. If we can keep bringing ourselves back to the why am I focused on this purpose? Why do I want to do this thing? It makes it so much easier to get started, to face that challenge, to take it head on by continually realigning back to the why. Why did I want to do this to begin with? And again, accountability partner, cannot say enough about the accountability partner. This saves me all the time. I have a meeting on the calendar. It happened this morning. I had a meeting on the calendar with a working group around some hard skills growth stuff that we're doing. And I knew I'm not coming into that meeting empty-handed. I'm going to carve out, an hour before in the morning or the day before, and I'm going to make progress on this goal and come to the table with what I've committed for that meeting to make sure that we have a productive space, because there's other people relying on me to do my piece. So that accountability partner can be super helpful in getting past that inertia and making that happen, giving us that motivation. All right, so we've been through a lot of different roadblocks. We've talked about kind of a lot of potential solutions as well of how do we make growth mindset happen? How do we get out of our own way so that we can accomplish success? So if you just heard this talk and did nothing else, I consider that a failure on my part. I want to always leave you with something to take action on. How can you make your life better? How can you actually put growth mindset into practice in your world? First thing is to identify those roadblocks. What are the things standing in your way in your world? What are the things that you need to focus on and get past? Once you've identified them, I select one strategy that I brought up today in relation to those roadblocks that you're going to put into practice this week. And at the end of the week, reflect on that. How did it work? What would you have adjusted? How would you come at it differently? Did you see success? Might be a little success, but is there something there to build off of? And then again, let's build off of it. Let's take another strategy and put it into place. Might not be the week after. Maybe you want to keep working on that first strategy, but let's call it 2 weeks out. Let's put something else into practice. You're going to find that 6 weeks down the road, 3 months down the road, you are operating at a much better place. You're being more productive. You are living into that growth mindset in everything that you do every day. So, all right. So a few resources here. I am going to post this deck up on my Twitter feed, ASP Programmer. I am aware it's very retro, so thank you. After the talk here, I'd say give me about 15 minutes, but 3 links I provided for you to help take what we talked about here and either dig deeper or go to the next step. So the first one is mindset. This is the seminal work by psychologist Carol Dweck. She basically kind of put together all of this growth mindset stuff back in the 70s. Super interesting book. Again, a lot of this material came from that. And she goes down some rabbit holes. I will tell you that, or, give you that notice ahead of time. But it is a very interesting thing if you want to explore this topic further. 2 presentations that I've previously given, The Secrets of Time Management and the Countless Benefits of Mentoring, I kept pulling pieces of that for this presentation. So they feel like natural next steps if you want to explore ways to increase yourself as a professional and to grow your skills in some of these other areas, as well as the giving back through mentoring, as well as the benefits that you see through it. So again, these will be up on Twitter after this, and so that wraps us up. I thank you all for giving me an hour of your time to talk professional growth and growth mindset. Happy to connect with any of you. I am a software architect on LinkedIn, ASP Programmer on Twitter. I am at just Runyon, RUNYON, on Blue Sky for those who are adventurous enough in social media to already be on the platform, and mark.runyon@improving.com. So please reach out. If it's a week from now, a year from now. I know some of these things can be abstract when you're not putting them into action and making it a practice. So as questions come up, I would love to talk with you, help you with your journey and whatever that may look like. So with that, happy to answer any questions you have now. Lynn, do we have anything?
Well, I just had a quick question. First of all, I wrote down a ton of notes, so thank you for that. What you mentioned mentors a couple of times. What's a good first step for finding, a really good mentor?
Sure. So probably 2 ways to come at it. So some companies actually have mentorship programs within them. So if that's available to you, that's kind of an easy way to get started. Usually they'll do some sort of assessment and kind of figure out what is the area you're trying to grow into, and pair you with somebody more senior in that area to help and assist and kind of remove some of those roadblocks along the way. If you don't have that at your disposal, then some of the work kind of as a mentee is on you to identify who is that right person that you want to work with. For me, I would say kind of searching your social networks. Who is it could be your boss, which is actually more of a sponsor, but it could be a coworker, could be a friend. There's no limitations, but realistically, it's what is that thing that I want to grow into, and then who's kind of already there, who can help offer a lending hand And then the advice is just probably to set a meeting to kind of discuss and feel out if it's a good relationship, if that's somebody that might want to lean in and help you out in that way, and then just make the ask. Usually, most people are fairly flattered and want to help you out, but don't feel rejected or anything. Somebody's just like, I'm sorry, it's not my thing, or I don't have time, or whatever else. Not everybody is comfortable playing that role. So just understand that there'll be certain people that it's just not a comfortable ask. It has nothing to do with you. Just continue the search and find that next person that's right for you. But just realize people's limitations through that. So
Great. Thank you, Mark. And just a personal side note, one thing that I took from this talk is that people take feedback very personally. And so as managers and as leaders, we need to be good stewards of giving that feedback to people so that they can grow with it. So thank you for that. I pulled that right out of one of your slides. Awesome.
yes, I actually have one thing to say on that. I had three tough conversations within the past week to people that are kind of under my management team, and there was one of them that I didn't approach as I usually do. I usually have a fairly succinct structure that works really well as far as creating dialogue and safety and crucial conversations for anybody that is familiar with the book. But I didn't follow my normal process through this, and the conversation, it ended okay. The result was fine, but I didn't leave the other person in a good space. And they reached out after the fact and gave me some feedback. And I'm like, I actually had to think through the conversation. I'm like, oh, I missed that step. I didn't ask this question. I didn't allow them to speak here. And I'm like, yeah, that conversation was a total failure. And it was a great remander to me of be a little bit more careful when you have those conversations and make sure you're putting in the right amount of prior work to make sure that they happen in the right way, and that we're not causing more harm than we started with. So that's a great point.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, excellent advice. Excellent. All right. Well, we thank everybody for attending today. And if you'd like to look through this again, and there's a ton of content, you can look on improving.com under thought, and you'll also find out about our next talks coming up. Thanks for coming, and have a great day. Thanks, Mark.
Yep.